The 2019 NHL Draft is now completed, and as we saw, especially in the first few rounds, there were some very interesting selections. In today's video, I'm going to tell you who I think are the top 5 draft steals of this draft, and that's coming up next. Welcome back here to Top Shelf Hockey. Now, as we said here, the 2019 NHL Draft has come to a close. All 7 rounds are complete. All kinds of great selections made by many NHL teams. But as we know, in every draft, there's always a few diamonds in the rough. You see players falling, getting them much lower than you ever expected to be. So there's always draft steals pretty much every year. So let's jump into who I feel are the top 5 steals of this draft, at least as of right now. All of my draft steal prospects are ranked here according to where they were selected here in the draft, not necessarily the order how I feel that they're going to perform at the NHL level, so keep that in mind here. Now, first up, we get the Vancouver Canucks being able to draft Russian winger Vasili Podkolzin at the number 10 overall slot here. That, to me, is an incredible draft steal, and I think many teams shied away from him because of the Russian factor and the fact that he's not going to come over to the NHL more likely for 2 years. There's some speculation that he might be able to get out of that contract and come over to North America after 1 year, but even if it is 2, like Jim Benning said, most of these prospects are going to need a year or 2 of seasoning anyway, so he really didn't understand what the big deal was or why other teams might shy away from him. But Vasili Podkolzin could very well be a game breaker for this team. I think they're very fortunate that he was still here on the draft board. I mean, there were times during the season when some drafting ranking places had him as high as 3 or 4. I know I did at one point as well. The only reason I dropped him down is not so much so because of his skill level, it's just because I really started to get a feel based on all the talk going around that some of these teams were going to shy away from him here because of the Russian factor. Now, Podkolzin has very high-end defensive awareness. He's got lightning-quick hands. He's got great size at 6'1", around 190 pounds. He's an incredibly hard worker. He plays aggressively in all 3 zones. He's got a pretty solid two-way play. So I know some players in this draft are not real strong defensively at this age, but he really is. He's got the two-way game down pat here pretty good. And even though the defensive side of the game can be impressive, he can really hurt you on a score sheet when you're playing against him. So even though Podkolzin appears to be a bit of a polarizing figure here amongst this draft class, I really think the Canucks lucked out and got themselves a really high-end prospect that they're going to be very happy with here in a few years' time when he comes over to North America. At number 15, the Montreal Canadiens were able to select Cole Caufield from the National Team Development Program in the United States. Obviously, I'm a little bit surprised that some of the teams ahead of Montreal didn't take the chance here. This guy is breaking records, scoring goals, playing alongside Jack Hughes all season. Even though he's small, that really has nothing to do with his skill level here. I have no doubt that his game will translate well to the NHL. Cole Caufield absolutely tore it up this year with goal scoring, and a lot of teams need that type of player. I think some of these teams shied away from him because he's so small, but you know what? As we've seen before, look at Alex DeBrincat, for example. He could be DeBrincat 2.0, really. DeBrincat's putting up 40-goal seasons. Like Alex DeBrincat, Cole Caufield knows how to get into the space to get open for the opportunities to put the puck in the net. He's got a really good shot. Even though he's not overly big, he's got a strong, accurate shot here. And I really can see Cole Caufield's game translating well to the NHL. And personally, I think the Montreal Canadiens were incredibly lucky to get him at number 15. Obviously, they're used to having some smaller forwards. I'm sure ideally many of the Habs fans out there would like to see them add some size to the wings, but it's not often you get a chance to grab this kind of player, so I'm glad to see that Bergevin took advantage here and made the selection here, taking the small forward who's going to put the puck in the net at an incredibly high rate and should be a terrific addition to the Habs lineup here when he's ready to join the NHL, probably in 1 or 2 years' time. Next up, we have Peyton Krebs, who ended up falling down to the number 17 slot to the Vegas Golden Knights. Personally, I really thought for sure that Krebs would end up going with a top 10 selection here, but there were certainly some other surprise picks in front of him. I only had one defenseman going as high as many of the defensemen went here, and of course that was Bowen Byram. Some other defensemen, though, like Broberg and Soderstrom, were selected, and Moritz Seider as well, high by the Detroit Red Wings, which certainly ended up sending some of these forwards down lower than many of us had expected here. But I really think the Vegas Golden Knights got lucky that Peyton Krebs was still on the board at number 17. Peyton Krebs is coming off an Achilles tendon injury where he's still in the process of recovering, but really, I'm not sure why teams would be scared off by that. I'm not sure if that really had much to do with his draft stock kind of falling here Players from that injury typically make full recoveries and come back stronger than ever. So not really sure if that had much of an impact here, but obviously Krebs slipped down here to Vegas at 17. Krebs is a little bit smaller than some of the other forwards that went higher in this draft. He's around 5'11", 180, but he plays with a ton of energy. He's a terrific playmaking center iceman, incredibly high hockey IQ. With that hockey IQ that he has, it comes with excellent anticipation as well. Krebs can anticipate to play a couple of moves ahead, which really allows him to be such a terrific playmaker. He makes everybody around him better and really helps them bring out their offensive skills. So to me, Peyton Krebs certainly looks to be a pretty solid top 6 center iceman. You never know, because of his size, he may end up playing on the wing. But either way, this guy is just too good to not make the NHL and to not be a top 6, in my opinion. Next up at number 33, we've got Arthur Kaliyev from the Ontario Hockey League going to the Los Angeles Kings. Now, Kaliyev really was expected to go in round number 1. Many people had him pegged being in the second half of the first round, depending on who you ask. I've seen him ranked anywhere, from like 15, 20, 25. It just depends here. Obviously, there are a few question marks around his character, but really overall, Arthur Kaliyev, in my opinion, is a terrific hockey player, and he had himself a terrific season in the OHL. He's a pure goal scorer. He's got an awesome work shot. He ended up scoring 51 goals and putting up 102 points, and this is on a team that had a lot of turnover on it in Hamilton. He ended up playing with a lot of different teammates and line mates throughout the year, and it really didn't seem to matter who he played with. He made those around him better and still continued to produce some big numbers. So even though there are some question marks around Arthur Kaliyev, I really don't think they're all that legitimate here. Personally, I think the LA Kings really lucked out that he was available here at number 33. That just really adds to not much more of an impressive draft. Obviously, they get Alex Turcotte in round 1 with their number 5 overall selection. Then to turn around and grab Kaliyev here at 33, they really got themselves 2 really solid forwards, and I think that's really going to help the LA Kings rebuild here once they make the NHL. Obviously, Turcotte's likely a lot closer than Kaliyev, but still, in a couple years' time, when they're both ready to make the leap here, I think the LA Kings are going to be terrifically happy with that number 33 selection. At number 34 overall, the Philadelphia Flyers were able to snag Bobby Brink. Now, Bobby Brink's another guy who is a little bit of a polarizing figure in a sense that you get a variety of opinions on this player, but for the most part, it was a general consensus amongst most of the ranking systems out there that he would be a first-round selection. I know some people had him as high as about 14, 15, even 13. Like, he's the type of player that really grabbed a lot of attention and really seemed to rise up the ranking systems throughout the season, but he was available in round 2 for the Philadelphia Flyers when they had the 34th overall selection. Now, he's a little bit smaller, so like Cole Caufield, who we saw drop into round 1 to the Montreal Canadiens at 15, Bobby Brink here certainly is smaller as well. He's 5'8", around 165 pounds. He's got excellent vision and anticipation. He put up 35 goals in the USHL this past year. His hockey IQ is off the charts. One thing, though, is he's not the greatest skater. His skating certainly does need to improve, but really of all the skills, skating to me is the easiest to work on. A lot of those other skills really are something that comes naturally, and it's a little bit harder to teach. Some of those things you just can't teach, but skating is certainly something he could work hard on with some skating coaches and really improve that along. He has committed to going to the University of Denver as well, so he's going to be playing in a pretty good hockey program for probably at least 1 or 2 seasons as well. And the Flyers have all kinds of great prospects already in their organization at the forward position, and they have some younger forwards already on their roster here. So really, I think he's going to have a hard time cracking that lineup for a few years anyway, so he can focus on playing college hockey, improve his skating, really hone his craft, and really Bobby Brink should be ready for the NHL here, hopefully in 2 to 3 years' time. Next up here with the number 38 selection overall, the Edmonton Oilers were able to grab Raphael Lavoie from the Halifax Mooseheads. Now, I am incredibly surprised that Lavoie slipped as low as he did. Like all of these guys, they ended up slipping down further than some of us expected, but Lavoie was one of the bigger droppers. I mean, I really thought Lavoie, personally, at some points, I had him around 15 to 20. I know that might have been a little bit high for some people, but even most people agreed probably somewhere in that 20 to 25 range was pretty reasonable. I mean, Lavoie had an excellent season with the Mooseheads in the QMJHL. He's got great size. He's over 6'4". He's certainly a power forward. He can play center or he can play the wing as well. He's got terrific speed. He's got an excellent shot. He protects the puck well and drives hard to the net. This is a player that I've had an opportunity to see in person on numerous occasions. He certainly had a really strong playoff run with the Mooseheads, went all the way to the finals of the Memorial Cup, had an excellent Memorial Cup tournament as well. For me, Raphael Lavoie is a really solid high-end prospect that really has an excellent shot at making it in the NHL. Like I said, he's not afraid of the rough stuff. He plays a gritty game. And as we've seen here in the playoffs with the St. Louis Blues winning the Stanley Cup, there is still something to having that heavy game or having those forwards who can play solid along the boards and in the corners. You do need some of that, and he has all those skills. And he has the size and skills necessary to be the modern-day power forward. So I'm kind of surprised he slipped as low as he did, but it was a great job of the Oilers to take advantage of that. He's a type of player that they don't really have on their roster right now, so I could see him earning an opportunity. Probably not this year, but maybe next. I think he likely goes back to junior. Hopefully has a chance to even dominate even more, maybe get a chance to play for Team Canada World Juniors, and then hopefully that experience will really propel him to being on the Oilers roster maybe in 2 years' time. Obviously, with the rebuild that the Oilers are going through here, there's a lot of opportunity, and it's something he can hopefully take advantage of to maybe accelerate his push to the NHL here. So those are the top draft steals here in my opinion. Of course, as always, I want to hear your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section. So let me know what you think. Who do you think were the top draft steals in the 2019 NHL Draft? And we can continue the conversation in the comment section. Thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you next time.